Hey, it's Sam from Sugar Spun Run, and today we are making cosmic cookies. So you can probably guess what popular childhood snack today's cookie recipe is based off of. We are taking those classic plastic wrapped brownies and we are making a gourmet cookie based off of that idea. Comes together easily, has an incredible flavor. It's hard to stop eating these. I think you're going to love it. So let's get started. First component for today's recipe is our chocolate cookie base. If you've made a lot of my recipes, you may recognize this. I've used it for my Buckeye cookies, some other chocolate cookies, just because it's a very versatile cookie dough and it gives us the impression of a brownie without being too brownie-like. It just works really well here. First ingredient you need for these cookies is 1 cup of melted unsalted butter. When melting your butter, it's a good idea to chop it up into pieces before you put it in a microwave-safe bowl. Make sure you're heating it in intervals. If you heat your butter for too long, it can pop and explode in your microwave. So just do like 10-15 seconds at a time and stir in between until it's completely melted. Now, as soon as your butter comes out of the microwave, you can go ahead and add your cocoa powder. You are going to need a 1/2 cup of natural cocoa powder. We'll stir that into the butter. Adding it while the butter is still a little bit warm is going to help bloom the cocoa powder and just give us a more intense chocolatey flavor. This also helps cool down that butter a little bit because you never want to add your sugars while the butter's too warm, because that can melt the sugars and give you a greasy cookie dough that's just difficult, maybe impossible to work with. So once that cocoa powder is mixed in, I'm just going to fill the bottom of the bowl, make sure it doesn't feel too warm, and mine doesn't. So I'll go ahead and add my sugar. You're going to use 1 cup of granulated sugar and 3/4 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar. This blend of sugars gives us a nice flavor, nice moisture, nice texture to the cookies. Works really well. I'm gonna mix those in just a little bit before I add my egg and egg yolk. So we're going to add 1 large egg. This should be at room temperature. If it's too cold, it could end up sort of seizing in your batter or your cookie dough, which can cause things just not to combine as nicely as they really should. So in addition to the egg, we're going to use an egg yolk. This extra egg yolk helps also give us that texture we're looking for. Fudgy, super tender, nice and moist. If we were to add the egg white as well, the end result would be a lot cakier and could even be drier than we want it to be. We'll also add a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then we'll continue to stir everything together until these ingredients are well combined. All right, once that's nicely combined, slide it out of the way. Grab yourself a separate mixing bowl. You just need a medium-sized bowl, and you will need 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. We're also going to add a teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and of course we need a little bit of salt for flavor. You just need table salt for today's recipe. We're going to use 3/4 teaspoon. We'll whisk these ingredients together because we want everything to be nicely incorporated. All right, now we can gradually add this to our wet ingredients. And do this part gradually. I like to add the flour in like 3 parts. Adding it all at once can make it difficult for the dough to absorb the flour, which can make things dry and crumbly. And this dough does lean a little bit more on the dry side, so you just wanna make things easy on yourself. The last bit of flour. Okay, once we're completely combined, no flour streaks, nice uniform dough. Now comes the worst part of the recipe, which is the part where I have to use the plastic wrap, but also the part where we have to chill the dough. The dough is going to need to chill in the refrigerator for 30 minutes. You do want to cover it with plastic wrap, my nemesis. This is actually my favorite plastic wraps. It fights me the least. Pretty seamless. This dough is going to need to chill for 30 minutes before you bake with it. So while it's chilling, I recommend preheating your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Make sure your rack is in the center where it should be for most of your recipes, because that's where we'll be baking these cookies. See you in a little bit. All right, once your dough has chilled and your oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, we can start scooping our cookie dough. You are going to need 2 tablespoons of dough per cookie. So I'm using my 1.5 tablespoon size scoop, and I'm just doing heaping scoops of that. I feel like I'm struggling to talk today. And I want these cookies to be nice and round, so I'm just going to roll them in my palms to make them nice and smooth. And we'll space the cookies about 2 inches apart on the baking sheet, give them a little bit of room to grow. You'll notice they're not going to spread a ton. That's fine. We're going to flatten them when they come out of the oven. That'll give us a nice surface for adding our frosting. All right, bake these in the center rack of your 350 degree Fahrenheit oven for about 9 to 10 minutes. pretty much immediately after the cookies come out of the oven, I'd say within a minute, minute and a half, you're going to want to take a clean, flat surface, and we're just going to gently press down the cookies, as I mentioned. This will just give us a nice flat surface for adding our frosting. We are going to let these cookies cool completely before we add that frosting, so I'm going to let them cool for about 5 to 10 minutes before we remove them into a cooling rack to let them cool completely. Once the cookies are cool, we can prepare our fudgy frosting that goes on top of them. You'll need a microwave-safe bowl, and in this we're going to combine 1 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips with 2/3 cup of milk chocolate chips. I found that this blend of semi-sweetened milk works really well in getting just the right flavor. I use a very similar blend in my Copycat Cosmic Brownies. We're also going to add 6 tablespoons of heavy cream. And I'm just going to stir everything together. And this is going to go over to the microwave where I'm going to heat it for 25 seconds. Likely won't all be melted after 25 seconds, but make sure you give it a good stir, and then return it to the microwave for 10 seconds, stir again, and if needed, return it in 5-second intervals until completely melted. If you don't want to do this in the microwave, you could instead do it in a double boiler over low heat. Once things are pretty melty, I'll switch over to the whisk, and I'll whisk until it's nice and smooth. Once everything is well combined, we're going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and a pinch of salt is really going to round out the flavor, keep things from being too sweet. So we're going to add an 1/8 teaspoon, whisk those ingredients in as well. Now, if your mixture is nice and thick like mine, it should be smooth and shiny, but if it looks thick enough that you'll be able to spread it over your cookies, then we're going to go ahead and do that right away. If yours seems a little bit melty, you might want to give it like 5 minutes or so before you start spreading it over your cookies. Bring our cookies back. And you can spread the icing on top any way you'd like. I like to take about 2 teaspoons of the frosting and just kind of plop it right on the center, and then use an offset spatula to just smooth it over the cookie. I don't go all the way to the edges. And I said 2 teaspoons, but I actually use between 2 and 3 teaspoons of frosting per cookie. Now, if your frosting is running off of the cookies, then you are going to want to let it cool a little bit longer before you start trying to use it. Then, of course, the final touch that makes these cosmic cookies, you're going to want the candy-coated chocolate bits, and just sprinkle them over your cookies. I find 2 tablespoons does a great job of coating the cookies. Just want a little scattering per cookie. And that is how you make these super cute and fun cosmic cookies. If you try this one, let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. That's a good cookie. Oh my gosh. I tend to be an overscooper.
Hey Mom, why do you have to wait for it to dry today?
What? We're gonna wait for the frosting to dry before we eat the cookies.
Why?
That's just how we do it.
Oh man.